The famous ride of the Revolution. In doing research on Paul Revere's ride, I found a lot of interesting facts and interesting stories that have become tall tales. I chose to write about the ride of Paul Revere because on the surface, the history, although very, very romantic and minor, what it accomplished, and it had great importance for the development of the United States as we know it today. Revere's father died, and Paul was too young to assume the family business. Paul joined the provincial army during the French and Indian War. He returned back to Boston after serving the army and assumed the family business. Like all merchants, his business was affected by the taxes and rules in place and put on the colonies by the British. He was not in favor of British rule. Paul joined a group called the Sons of Liberty. The Sons of Liberty are well known for the Boston Tea Party. This group also spied and kept watch on all British movements. Paul, with his multi-talented in business, he was a silversmith, an engraver. He also became a courier, and he rode from Boston to New York and Boston to Philadelphia, carrying information to the Patriots. He delivered in stories about the political unrest and the goings-on of Boston. Paul and his ride became the reason for many young children to become interested in the study of history and the revolution of the 13 colonies. He became immortalized by the poem that was published 40 years after this historic event. Paul Revere's Ride is Longfellow's best-known poem. It begins at a trot. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. This poem, although popular, was embellished with a few non-facts. One of the more incorrect statements in the poem was Revere calling out, "The British are coming! The British are coming!" The colonists, or the Patriots, they all felt they were British. They just didn't like British rule. If you take the poem at face value, Paul and William Dawes were the only riders. Not so. They rode, and they informed the countryside of the British troop movements. This rallied more riders to tell the warning. There were 40-plus riders that rode that night. The reason for the ride was to warn the countryside how the British would come to fight with the Patriots. As history is recorded, Paul Revere rode a boat across Boston Harbor. He then borrowed a horse, and after seeing 2 lanterns hung from the North Church, they knew the British were coming by sea. They rode and finally met with Adams and Hancock in a tavern. It was Adams and Hancock the British would like to capture. This early warning informed the country of the invasion, and the Patriots met the British in the cities of Concord and Lexington. Adams and Hancock were able to avoid being captured. Revere and Dawes themselves were captured and detained for a while, but later let go. This ride became a model of how the colonies would call the Patriot Army to muster. Paul Revere also recorded history with the smithing of silver, engraving of images, and documents. He also published articles about the times. There was an original issue of a revolutionary bond engraved by Paul Revere sold on the TV show Pawn Stars. It was traded for $12,000 and a Fender guitar. That was in 2010. This event was only a small piece of history, and it has been the catalyst for a lot of tourism for Massachusetts. Places like Paul Revere's shop, the North Church, and the tavern that Paul met Adams and Hancock are on the list of revolutionary must-sees. My feeling is that if Paul had not made his ride, Adams and Hancock may not have been warned in time. And if they had been captured by the British, how would that affect history? There may not have been a Declaration of Independence, which led to the Constitution, which led to the Bill of Rights. And as they say, the rest is history. There are no small events in history. One man's effort has changed the world. Thank you.